Sitting in for Mike today, here's Joey Hudson.
Days off, headed into the Thanksgiving week. Glad to have you join me. There's lots of ways for you to join the conversation today. On the MyPillow text line, for example, 800-655-MIKE, 1-800-655-6453. Love to get your comments on the MyPillow text line. When you choose option 1, you can let Tracy know to put you in queue. We'll talk as time permits. And, of course, option 2, leave a quick message. Either way, love for you to join the conversation on this Monday edition of the Mike Gallagher Show. Texas Governor Greg Abbott endorsed President Donald Trump. Not totally unexpected, but give President Trump a little boost headed into 2024. We'll talk some of the details on that. And President Joe Biden getting some more bad news in relationship to polls. NBC News released the results of their latest poll showing that Biden has just 34% of voters who approve of how he's handling the situation in Israel. Also, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis yesterday would not condemn tech mogul Elon Musk in his anti-Semitic post as if Musk engaged in anti-Semitic rhetoric. This on CNN's State of the Union. We'll jump into that in just a moment as well. Talk about a clear case of the fox guarding the hen house, as we say here in South Carolina. It's a billion-dollar industry. Have you ever heard of NewsGuard? If not, you need to pay attention. You need to look them up. NewsGuard is a federally funded for-profit that casts itself as an agent of truth, if you will, an arbiter of online truth. They're supposedly the final authority when it comes to whether something posted online is actually true or not. Now, the problem with this is that some of the very businesses, like the New York Times, for example, that they should be warning us about, they're paying them big bucks for their services. So there's a bit of a conflict of interest there. Again, it's the classic tale of the fox guarding the hen house. Really digging deep into these types of stories. And by the way, Real Clear investigators are nonpartisan as well. They'll call you out whether you are a conservative, liberal, progressive, or whatever. Some of the best investigative reporting that you'll ever gonna read about from Real Clear Investigations. Well, they have been investigating this group called NewsGuard. Writing for RCI, Lee Fang talks about what NewsGuard actually does as opposed to what they say they do. NewsGuard, again, this is a almost $2 billion company. As the Twitter files revealed, last year? That censorship can actually come from the government. When we learn that Joe Biden, during COVID, that his administration was actually advising, if you will, what some of the messaging should be in relationship to wearing a mask, getting the shot, closing your business. So NewsGuard affects what I'm going to call censorship in a number of different ways. Because censorship can be accomplished in a number of different ways. For example, direct government influence, like we saw during COVID with the Biden administration. You can have non-governmental agencies like the Stanford Internet, Internet Observatory. And because they're from this Ivy League school, they're supposed to be the authority. Or you can have groups like NewsGuard, which, again, is selling its services for almost $2 billion. NewsGuard uses a 0 to 100 grade in its nutrition labels, if you will, to classify entire news sites and news organizations, magazines, newspapers, websites, any type of group that disseminates information that you and I may rely on as to whether or not it's truth or not. Clients include U.S. government agencies who pay for their services. And that's where the conflict of interest. Investor represents Pfizer, whose COVID vaccine has been questioned by a number of different news agencies. And guess what? NewsGuard gives them a low score. Do you see where this is headed? NewsGuard's ratings are subjective. For example, the New York Times gets a 100% rating. So that should tell you everything you need to know about NewsGuard. If they are rating the New York Times with a 100, if they're giving them a passing score, that kind of tells you to which side of the spectrum they lean. Because how is it possible that the New York Times would get a 100% score on truth telling? Get this, Real Clear Investigations, the publisher of this report, guess what they score? Guess what NewsGuard, what grade they have given RCI? 80%. So you have the New York Times getting a 100 and an organization like Real Clear Investigations only scoring an 80%. And they saw their score drop whistleblower during President Trump's impeachment. Remember that? Remember that story? NewsGuard was on top of that. NewsGuard was one of the, Real Clear Investigations was one of the first ones to call out the whistleblower. NewsGuard then put Real Clear Investigations in the crosshairs. NewsGuard also offers what they call their Brand Guard. It's a service for advertisers, and it has an exclusion list. So this is where the money gets involved. This is where it can get tricky. Because if you're a company out there and you cross NewsGuard the wrong way, they're going to give you a bad score. They're going to encourage agencies who buy advertising not to advertise on your site. And that's where the real conflict can get in. That's where the conflict of interest comes in. You have the federal government who also hires them. And do you think that they're going to challenge government information when the government is spending millions of dollars with them to give them a good grade? We're going to dig a little bit deeper. Gordon Kravitz, he's a media executive turned startup investor who pitched Twitter executives about this powerful censorship tool that he had stumbled across, that he had envisioned. He's a self-described vaccine against misinformation. Do you want an organization like NewsGuard telling you what you can and cannot see? Because they're basically saying we're not smart enough to know ourselves, so they have to tell us whether something's misinformation or not.